Africa is a fascinating continent, full of contrasts and riches ranging from its vast geography to its cultural diversity. Known as the cradle of humanity, this territory is the second largest and most populated continent in the world, comprising 54 countries with an astonishing variety of landscapes, from scorching deserts and tropical rainforests to majestic mountains and vast savannas. Yet despite its historical importance and enormous cultural and natural wealth, Africa remains a continent little known to many people outside its borders. The African continent is home to more than 3,000 ethnic groups, each with their own languages, traditions, and ways of life. This cultural plurality is as diverse as its ecosystems, where wildlife abounds and nature unfolds in all its splendor. From the mighty Mount Kilimanjaro to the majestic Nile River, Africa offers a unique combination of natural beauty, ancient history, and evolving societies. In addition, Africa is home to some of the world's most impressive natural wonders, such as the Victoria Falls and the Sahara Desert. Not only does it boast incredibly varied wildlife, but it also witnesses unique phenomena such as the great migration of animals on the plains of the Serengeti, which offers one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on the planet. Despite its diversity and richness, Africa is often stereotyped or reduced to a one-dimensional image of poverty or conflict. However, those who dive beyond the headlines discover a vibrant continent, full of innovations, ancient cultures, and young generations that are transforming its future. Africa is a territory that combines the ancestral with the modern, where ancient traditions coexist with a contemporary dynamism that is setting the pace of its development. This introduction only skims the surface of such a vast and diverse continent. As we explore further, we will discover the stories, curiosities, and quirks that make Africa one of the most enigmatic and exciting places on the planet. Africa, the second largest continent on the planet, is a land of astonishing cultural, geographic, and natural diversity. With an area of around 30.3 million square kilometers, it represents approximately one-fifth of the planet's total land mass. However, despite its vastness and rich history, many people are not fully aware of the reality of this vast continent. In this video, we will explore the most surprising and lesser-known aspects of Africa that make it a fascinating and crucial region for humanity. 1. Africa, a continent of linguistic and cultural diversity. One of the most striking aspects of Africa is its enormous linguistic diversity. It is estimated that more than 25% of the world's languages are spoken exclusively in Africa, which means that thousands of languages and dialects coexist within its borders. These languages not only represent different forms of communication, but also vast cultures and identities that have been passed down through generations. This cultural kaleidoscope is reflected in the continent's 54 countries, each with its own traditions, customs, and systems of government. Although it is often mistaken to treat Africa as if it were a single country, it is in fact a diverse and complex mosaic that is home to some of the world's oldest and most enduring cultures. 2. Unique geography and biodiversity. Africa's geography is as diverse as its culture. From the vast Sahara Desert in the north to the lush rainforests of Central Africa and the mountainous landscapes of the east, Africa offers an impressive variety of ecosystems. This continent is home to much of the world's biodiversity, including some of the world's most iconic animal species, such as lions, elephants, giraffes, and rhinos. In addition, Africa is home to the famous Big Five animals, the lion, elephant, buffalo, leopard, and rhinoceros, which have captured the imagination of tourists and conservationists alike. The importance of African biodiversity lies not only in its ecological value, but also in its cultural and economic relevance. Many African communities depend directly on natural resources, such as local fauna and flora, for their livelihoods and development. 3. Ancient history, the origin of humanity. Africa is also known as the cradle of humanity. Archaeological discoveries suggest that the first modern humans, Homo sapiens, emerged in Africa approximately 200,000 years ago. Over the centuries, this continent has witnessed the birth of some of the most influential civilizations in history, such as ancient Egypt, the Kingdom of Kush, the Mali Empire, and Great Zimbabwe. Ancient Egypt, with its majestic pyramids and sophisticated culture, is perhaps the best-known African civilization worldwide. However, there are many other lesser-known but equally fascinating cultures that thrived in various regions of the continent. These civilizations developed advanced systems of trade, art, architecture, and governance that left a lasting mark on world history. 4. Colonial legacy and the struggle for independence. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, most of Africa was colonized by European powers. The impact of colonization was profound and brought about drastic changes in the social, political, and economic structures of the continent. Despite the exploitation and divisions imposed by the colonial powers, African peoples kept their cultural identity and resistance alive. The 20th century witnessed a wave of independence movements across Africa, with iconic leaders such as Nelson Mandela in South Africa, Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, and Patrice Lumumba in the Democratic Republic of Congo leading struggles for freedom and self-determination. These struggles not only transformed Africa, but also influenced civil rights and decolonization movements in other parts of the world. Africa today, a continent in transformation. Today, Africa is in a stage of accelerated transformation. Although many countries still face significant challenges, such as poverty, conflict, and inequality, there are also signs of progress and development. Emerging economies such as Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya are experiencing remarkable growth, driven by sectors such as technology, agriculture, and energy. The African continent is young. Approximately 60% of its population is under the age of 25, which represents great potential for the future. New generations are driving innovations in a variety of fields, from technology to culture, and are working to build a more prosperous and sustainable future for Africa. 6. Africa's crucial role in global sustainability. Africa plays a key role in the fight against climate change and environmental conservation. The continent is home to important ecosystems that are vital to global climate regulation, such as the Congo rainforests, which are known as the lungs of Africa. In addition, many African countries are taking steps to promote renewable energy and sustainable agriculture, underscoring the continent's commitment to balanced development. 7. Myths and realities about Africa. Over the years, many myths and misunderstandings have been generated about Africa. One of the most common is the misconception that Africa is a homogeneous and underdeveloped place. The reality is quite different. Africa is a continent of vast economic, cultural, and social differences. Some African countries, such as Botswana and Mauritius, have achieved high levels of human development, while others still face significant challenges. It is important to remember that Africa is not an isolated or static region. It is a dynamic continent with a rich history and a promising future. 8. The resurgence of African culture on the global stage. In recent years, African culture has gained greater visibility on the global stage. From music and film to fashion and art, African creators are showcasing their talent and creativity to the world. Phenomena such as Afrobeats, Nollywood cinema, and African designers have captured international attention, breaking stereotypes and showing a more authentic and diverse image of the continent. Africa is a culturally diverse and fascinating continent, home to thousands of ethnicities, languages, and traditions. Its cultural richness is reflected not only in its languages, but also in its customs, religions, artistic expressions, and festivals. 1. Languages and linguistic diversity. As mentioned above, Africa is home to more than 25% of the world's languages. Of the approximately 2,000 languages spoken on the continent, some of the most important include Arabic, Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba, Zulu, and Amharic. In addition to these majority languages, there are countless local languages and dialects that reflect people's deep connection to their ancestral lands and cultures. Swahili, spoken primarily in East Africa, is one of the most widely spoken languages on the continent and has been adopted as a lingua franca in several countries due to its historical importance in trade and interaction between diverse communities. This language symbolizes Africa's ability to connect across its vast cultural differences. Religion, a variety of beliefs. Africa is also a continent of great religious diversity. The two major religions are Islam and Christianity, which came to the continent through trade and colonization. Islam has a strong presence in North Africa, in countries such as Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, and others, while Christianity dominates in sub-Saharan Africa, especially in countries such as Nigeria, Ethiopia, and South Africa. Despite the influence of these Abrahamic religions, African traditional religions remain important. These religions are deeply rooted in local communities and focus on the worship of ancestors, spirits, and the forces of nature. In some cultures, belief in the connection between the living and the dead is central, and ancestors are seen as guardians and guides. 3. African art, expression, and spirituality. African art is famous for its variety and symbolic depth. Throughout history, African art has been linked to daily life, religion, and spiritual beliefs. From the famous African masks to wood and stone sculptures, the continent's art has greatly influenced modern Western art. European artists such as Picasso and Matisse found inspiration in the abstract and symbolic forms of African masks. Masks are used in traditional ceremonies and rituals, and are charged with spiritual significance. They are often associated with communication with the spirit world or the representation of deities and spirits. In many African cultures, these masks are an integral part of festivities, initiation rituals, funerals, and community events. 4. Music and dance, the energy of the continent. Music and dance are fundamental pillars of African culture. Each region has its unique musical style, but what unifies many African musical genres is their use of traditional instruments such as the djembe, African drum, the kora, a stringed instrument originating in West Africa, and the balafon, a type of xylophone. Contemporary African musical genres, such as Afrobeats, highlife in Ghana or Kwaito in South Africa, have gained global popularity in recent decades. Afrobeats, in particular, has leapt onto the international stage with artists such as Wizkid and Burna Boy, who have collaborated with global musicians and brought African rhythm and melodies to a mass audience. Dance, meanwhile, is a form of communal and spiritual expression. In many African cultures, dancing is a way of celebrating, telling stories, or connecting with the divine. African dances are often dynamic, rhythmic, and full of energy, and each ethnic group has its own unique forms of movement. 5. Traditional dress and fashion. Dress in Africa varies significantly from region to region, often reflecting both local climate and cultural tradition. African textiles, such as the Ghanaian kente or the West African Ankara, are world famous for their bright colors and intricate patterns. These fabrics have deep cultural meanings and are often used for ceremonies and special occasions. For example, the kente, which is a handmade fabric, is worn by the Ashanti and other groups in Ghana during important ceremonies, such as weddings or funerals. Each design and color of this fabric has a symbolic meaning. Bright colors represent life, while geometric patterns may reflect stories or legends. 6. Festivities and celebrations. African festivities are a vibrant reflection of each community's history, religion, and culture. Some of the most famous celebrations include Festival of Death, Fête des Morts, in Benin, a festival centered on the celebration of ancestors. Jirwul Festival in Niger, an annual beauty competition among the men of the Wodade ethnic group, in which they perform colorful and complex dances to attract women. Timkat in Ethiopia, which celebrates the baptism of Jesus Christ with a procession and religious ceremonies that attract thousands of people. These festivals are not only cultural events, but also opportunities to strengthen community ties and pass on traditions to younger generations. 7. African gastronomy, flavors, and traditions. Food in Africa is as diverse as its geography. Traditional dishes often include basic ingredients such as maize, rice, millet, cassava, and a variety of legumes and vegetables. African flavors tend to be rich and spicy, with Arabic, Indian, and European influences in some regions. In West Africa, for example, jollof rice is one of the most emblematic dishes, a mixture of rice cooked with tomatoes, onions, and spices that varies slightly from country to country. In Ethiopia, injera, a spongy teff bread, is the typical accompaniment to many dishes, and is served with spicy stews called wats. 8. African literature, voices from the continent. Africa has also been the cradle of important writers and poets. Figures such as Chinua Achebe of Nigeria, Ngugi wa Thiong'o of Kenya, and Nadine Gordimer of South Africa have used their writing to explore themes such as colonization, African identity, and the continent's social and political challenges. African literature is as diverse as the continent's languages and cultures, but a recurring theme is resistance to oppression and assertion of cultural identity. Poetry, myths, and traditional legends also form an essential part of the African literary legacy. African culture is a kaleidoscope of traditions, languages, music, dance, and art that reflects the diversity and richness of its peoples. As the world globalizes, African culture has found ways to preserve its roots while adapting to new trends. From its traditional ceremonies to its influences on global fashion and music, Africa remains a beacon of creativity, history, and diversity. Let's talk about fun facts. Africa is a continent full of curious and surprising facts, many of which are not so well known. Here are some of the most fascinating. More than 3,000 ethnic groups too. Africa is home to more than 3,000 distinct ethnic groups, each with its own language, culture, and traditions. This diversity is one of the reasons why Africa is so rich in customs and cultural expressions. From the Zulu in South Africa to the Maasai in Kenya and Tanzania, the variety is astounding. 2. The hottest place on the planet. In northeastern Ethiopia, the Danakil Desert is known as one of the hottest places in the world, where temperatures can exceed 50 degrees Celsius (122 degrees Fahrenheit). In addition, this region has some of the most extreme and surreal landscapes on the planet, with lava fields, acid lakes, and salt mountains. 3. Pink lakes. One of the most curious phenomena in Africa is Lake Redba in Senegal, known for its unusual pink color. This peculiar hue is caused by the presence of algae that produce a red pigment in the salt water. Depending on the concentration of salt and sunlight, the lake can vary from pale pink to vibrant fuchsia. 4. The country without a single traffic light. Botswana, a country in southern Africa, is famous for not having traffic lights in its capital, Gaborone. Instead, traffic is mainly regulated by traffic circles. Despite this, Botswana is one of the most prosperous and stable countries in Africa. 5. The world's largest tree by volume. The baobab, known as the tree of life, is an iconic species in Africa. Not only can it live more than 1,000 years, but some of them, such as the baobab in Limpopo, South Africa, have trunks so large that a small tavern has been built inside one. Baobabs are capable of storing thousands of liters of water inside their trunks, which allows them to survive in extreme drought conditions. 6. More than 50% of the population is under 25 years old. Africa is the world's youngest continent in demographic terms, with more than 50% of its population under the age of 25. This means that Africa's future is driven by a vibrant and dynamic youth that is transforming the continent. 7. The world's longest river. Although some recent studies suggest that the Amazon River is slightly longer, the Nile, which flows through 11 African countries, is traditionally considered to be the longest river in the world. Its length is more than 6,650 kilometers, and it has been a vital source of life for African civilizations since ancient times. 8. The first humans emerged in Africa. Africa is known as the cradle of humanity because the first Homo sapiens emerged in this continent. The oldest human fossils, dating back approximately 200,000 years, were found in Ethiopia, specifically in the Rift Valley. 9. The only place with penguins in Africa. Although penguins are commonly associated with Antarctica, a species called the African penguin or Cape penguin, which inhabits the coasts of South Africa and Namibia, can be found in Africa. Unfortunately, this species is in danger of extinction. 10. The world's largest island after Greenland. Madagascar, the huge island off the southeast coast of Africa, is the fourth largest island in the world. This territory is famous for its unique biodiversity. More than 90% of the plant and animal species living in Madagascar are found nowhere else on the planet. 11. The largest desert in the world. The Sahara is the largest hot desert in the world, covering approximately the size of the United States. Although many imagine it as a vast expanse of sand dunes, 70% of the desert is actually rocky plains, with scattered mountains and oases. 12. Victoria Falls, the world's largest waterfalls. Victoria Falls, located on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, is considered the largest waterfall in the world. It is approximately 1.7 kilometers wide and has a drop of 108 meters, creating a spectacular curtain of water and a roar that can be heard from miles away. 13. Pyramids in Sudan. Although Egypt's pyramids are world famous, Sudan also has its own set of pyramids. In fact, Sudan is home to more pyramids than Egypt, with a total of more than 200 in the Nubia region. These pyramids are a legacy of the ancient Kushite kingdoms, who ruled the area thousands of years ago. 14. The language of clicks. The Khoisan languages, spoken by the Khoisan peoples of southern Africa, are famous for using click sounds in their phonology. These unique sounds are rare in most languages of the world, and are used to differentiate words. 15. Africa's deepest lake. Lake Tanganyika, which lies between four African countries, Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Zambia, is the second deepest lake in the world, after Lake Baikal in Russia. It has a depth of 1,470 meters and is also one of the oldest lakes in the world. 16. One of the largest wildlife migrations. Every year, more than 1.5 million wildebeest, along with hundreds of thousands of zebras and other animals, participate in the Great Migration, which takes place between Tanzania and Kenya. It is one of the most impressive wildlife spectacles in the world, as the animals travel in search of fresh pastures, facing obstacles such as crossing the Mara River, where crocodiles stalk them. 17. Mount Kilimanjaro, the roof of Africa. Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania is the highest mountain in Africa, with a height of 5,895 meters. The interesting thing is that this mountain is a dormant volcano, and although it is close to the equator, its summit is covered with snow and glaciers, a striking contrast to the warm plains that surround it. Africa is, without a doubt, a continent full of wonders and secrets to discover. From its breathtaking natural landscapes to its incredible cultural diversity, every corner of this vast territory has a unique story to tell. To explore Africa is to enter a world of contrasts, beauty and constant evolution, making it a fascinating place to know and learn. If you are passionate about discovering more about the secrets of this continent and other topics of global interest, we invite you to subscribe to the World in Evolution channel. There you will find enriching content that will lead you to explore and better understand the world we live in. Also, don't forget to visit selfmatamillionaires.online to continue learning and developing your knowledge on various topics that will help you grow in a self-taught way. Join our community and keep evolving with us.